thanks for joining me today. I'm going to share this little project with you here. Now this was inspired from some newish dies that we have in the Spring Summer catalogue, and this is the Beautiful Shapes dies. Now I loved these because I love hexagons. They're always so useful and really make really simple cards, but can really sort of pack a punch. So I really liked the dies. But as soon as I saw them, I kind of wanted to make a box that was hexagonal, just like the actual shape. So this is a project which I've worked in centimetres, but I'm actually going to attempt to now make it in inches. So I'm hoping to be able to give you both measurements. So on paper, it's worked. I'm hoping that in real life it's going to work too. So fingers crossed, but if not, we'll make some adjustments as we go. So let me just show you the project a little bit more. So this is obviously a little box. We've got a little belly band here which is going to slip off, and then as we open it inside, I've got a little hand cream. I just thought it was a really sweet little gift, something you could give. If you want to, you can leave this section out, and then you could have it as a bigger box if you wanted to put some sweet treats or something else which was slightly larger inside, then that is okay as well. It makes quite a nice sized box because obviously you've got the depth and the height in it, so it makes quite a nice little gift. So there we go. So that's what we're going to make. I'm going to put that out of the way. No doubt we will bring it in again shortly. Now, I'm going to be using the same family of papers. So they are the Heart and Home DSP. Really beautiful papers, and I've got some really lovely ones, and I'm going to be using the lovely Bumblebee one today. So I'm going to start off with a piece of Papercraft cardstock, and what I've done, I've cut a lot of this ahead of time just so that to save a little bit of time on the video. So you need to cut 4 of the largest size of hexagons in Papercraft, and you're then going to cut them in half. So we need 4 sets of those, okay? You'll also need the next size down, and you're going to cut a couple of DSP in that one. So if I bring those in just very quickly, and you can see these are what we use to put at the ends of our box. So that's what you're going to need the hexagons for. So first of all, I'm going to take my cardstock. Now, as I say, I'm going to work in inches with this, and also give you the metric measurements as well. Sorry if you can hear that. I live near the airbase, so we've got lots of planes going over at the moment. So, okay, right, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to cut our cardstock. Now, we want to cut this at 8 5/8 of an inch. Now, there are some strange measurements in this because we it's the hexagons that have determined the size of our actual cardstock. So I apologise in advance for some really strange measurements, but they are quite important to actually get it to work properly. So normally what we would do is try and fit it on our page as best we can. Now we are going to need a long strip to actually do our belly band. So what I recommend is to do is we cut this at 5.5 inches in the first instance. Now this will give us a strip. Obviously I'm in the UK, so my card sizes are slightly different, but you can take this obviously from your own sizes, so that's good news. So 5.5 inches or 14 centimetres if you're working in metric. And then we are going to cut at 8 5/8 of an inch. So I just need to work out my 5/8, which is there. And in metric, that is 21.8 centimetres. As I say, this is determined by the hexagon, so I'm not giving you awkward measurements just to be awkward. So we're going to start with 3/8 of an inch. Now I always do my shorter measurement just on this end, just because I find it easier. And then at 1 11/16. So each inch is broken into 16 pieces. So the 1/2 inch is 8, so we just need to go on 3 little pieces from there for our next measurement. I will give the metric in a moment just so as not to confuse. So then we go to 3 inches, nice easy one, and then 4 5/16, 5 5/8, 6 15/16. Ooh, let's get my teeth in for that one. And finally 8 1/4. Nice easy one. Okay, so there you'll see we've got 6 pieces, equal pieces, and then we've got these 2 little sections at the end. Now, if you are working in metric, you're going to score yours at 1 centimetre, 4.3 centimetres, 7.6 centimetres, 10.9 centimetres, 14.2, 17.5 and 20.8. Okay, so now we need to pop this round into portrait. So we're now in imperial and we want to score at 3/8 of an inch on either side. Okay, and for those working in metric, you're going to score yours at 1 centimetre on either side. Okay, so let's start with this. So I'm just going to burnish all my lines, so hopefully they will show out a little bit better for you on the video. Okay, so now we need to do some cutting. So the first thing we want to do is to remove the corners. I want these long strips to remain pretty much intact. So I'm just cutting a very slight little angle on it because that is going to go on the inside of our box. Now what we need to do is we need to cut these other pieces at quite an angle. So what I tend to do is to try and sort of imagine a square. So this is our 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre. So I try and go roughly about the same distance along this edge and remove. Now you don't need to panic too much about this because this is going to be hidden inside, but that's my rough guide. I'm not going to measure it because I really don't need to, but this is just a rough guide. And I want to do that on both sides, so this is the same obviously for metric or imperial. And again across here, and then just remember at the ends I just want a tiny little angle on it just to make it fit inside the box a little bit easier. Oops, go across a bit more. So again, you might just want to cut all your angles in one way first. So trim that little end on a bit more. I'm just going back the other way now. Okay, so that's our cutting done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to decorate this as I am now. So when I cut my paper, I actually cut this so it sort of followed on, so that I knew that the pattern would kind of follow. In this particular one, it doesn't actually matter a huge amount because it's quite random. But can you see where this sort of flower sort of follows on and things like that? So that's just, I think it's quite a nice sort of way to do it. If you've got a random pattern, then that's obviously not going to worry. So on my original one, I actually did sponge the edges of all my paper in fresh freesia. I just thought it gave it a nice finish, and I considered doing it with this one, but actually I felt that it really didn't need it. So I'm just leaving these ones here, but you obviously do what you wish. So I'm just going to glue these down. I just think it's slightly easier to do it this way. So I will give you the measurements for the DSP now. So these measure 4.5 inches by 1 1/16 of an inch. Now, if you're working in metric, yours are going to be 11.5 centimeters by 2.8 centimeters, and you need 6 of them. Okay, so I'm quite happy that they're all now stuck in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my hexagons. So remember, we cut this in half, and I'm going to start rolling my box. So this is going to be my front. So I'm going to start here and work round on these 3. Now, I found it better to use wet glue for this. Again, it's entirely up to you, whatever you're most comfortable with. But I'm going to start off with this section here. So you just want to make sure that obviously that angle is correct. I'm going to stick that on there, and then going to bend that round to my next one. Just manipulate it a little bit just to make sure that it all lines up nicely. And then finally that last one there. So you can see that has already given us the shape of our box, which is really nice and simple. So then what I decided to do was to actually glue inside the other half of my hexagon. There was 2 reasons for that. One was to cover the inside, because I always think it's nice to try and cover those edges if at all possible. But secondly, it gives it strength. So that was my main purpose for it. I did try in the process of designing to actually fold it in half so that it went across the top, but I found that that made it a little bit cumbersome, and also because of the fold it didn't fit particularly well. So just stuck that inside there, and then I'm going to work on the other side next. Again, if you work on one side at a time for the top and then one side for the bottom, you'll find that it will go together a lot easier rather than try and do all one side. So again, just sticking this in place. So just manipulate it a little bit if you need to, just to get it to fit nicely. Okay, so I'm going to do the same again, just with the other half of my hex. Going to stick this inside, and you'll find that it will all start sort of, this is quite flimsy, but once you've put a second layer on, then it suddenly starts to sort of take its shape. So now you can feel that's getting quite strong. Okay, so we're just going to repeat for the top. So this is, sorry, this was the top, wasn't it? This is the way I started. So my bumblebees are facing in the right way. So this is actually the base I'm doing now, but it's exactly the same. Okay, so that is our box pretty much made. So as you can see, it's actually quite quick. It's not a massively involved. Once you've got those huge measurements done, which are quite horrendous, just try and keep a note of what is your front and what is your back. Now what I've done with these sections, I've actually left them loose because it gives it a really nice finish when you close it up. So if you feel you want to stick them inside, then you can, but I felt it just gave that nice finish when it was done. So the next thing I want to do is to take my 2 DSP hexagons, and I'm just going to cut these in half across the points, exactly like I did with the large hexagons. Just keep them as a pair so I don't get them muddled up. Okay, so these are going to be stuck on the ends. And what I actually did was I lined the edge up with the edge of the box so that when it closes it looks like one hexagon. And this is where also, if you did have a little piece showing, most of that is going to be covered by your DSP. So that's why I say not to worry too much. Close your box as you stick your second one on, because then you can make sure that you get that full hexagon effect. Oops. And again, just close the box up so that you can actually position it correctly. Then you can glue it down. Okay, so that is our actual box made. Now what we want to do is to make the inside section, which is where our gift is going to sit, whether that be a hand cream or nail varnish, lipstick, sweets, whatever that may be. So we're just going to make this center section here. Okay, so this time we need to cut our piece of card to 5 1/8 of an inch by 4 11/16 of an inch. Okay, so if you're working in metric, yours is going to be 12.5 centimeters by 11.8 centimeters. Okay, so the smaller measurement, the 4 11/16 or the 11.8 centimeters, is actually our width. Okay, so you want your larger measurement at the top. So this is 5 1/8 of an inch or 12.5 centimeters. Okay, and we're going to score in imperial. We're going to score at 1 1/4 on both sides. Okay, now if you're working in metric, you are going to score yours at 3 centimeters on either side. I'll just quickly burnish those. So if I bring my box in, make sure I've got him up the right way, this is going to sit in here eventually. And it should be quite a nice sort of fit. If you find it's too wide, then you can just trim this. So just try it in there first, and then we're going to pop it out again. So that's absolutely fine. Now, what I should have said to you right at the very beginning actually is on the box, the very first measurement we had, which was 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, depending on which you're working at, that obviously determines the length of your box. So if you want to make this longer, then obviously you just make that a bigger measurement. So I should have pointed that out right at the beginning. So now what I'm going to do is to glue a piece of DSP to this section here. So this measurement for this section is 4.5 inches by 2 7/16. Or if you're working in metric, it's 11.5 centimetres by 6.2 centimetres. So I'm just going to quickly grab the hand cream from the box so that we can line this up. So depending on what you're popping in, so if you're doing something like a lipstick, which is the same width all the way along, I would be inclined just to create a little sort of cut in the middle and sort of push it in very slightly. But because this is a different width from top to bottom, the easiest way to do it, I found, was just to use a little bit of ribbon. So I'm just kind of eyeballing sort of where the centre is really, and just marking it with a pencil, just either side. I don't want it tight to it, so just wherever you sort of can. You can measure it if you prefer, but in all honesty, this is homemade. People want, want to see it's homemade, so just going to punch a couple of little holes. I can just see where my pencil marks are there. Okay, so then I'm just going to thread a little piece of the ribbon. This is our Whisper White crinkle ribbon. I like this ribbon because you can colour it if you want to. I'm going to leave it white on this occasion, but you can colour it if you wanted to coordinate with whatever you're making. You can either use our normal inks, or you can actually use the stamping blends. If you use the stamping blends, actually, it's quite good because it makes it a little bit stiffer, so it works quite nicely. So now I want to pop this into my box. So making sure I'm up the right way, I'm going to add some glue to this edge here. And I'm just going to stick this in the back of the bottom of my box. Just make sure that fits in. My ribbon doesn't get caught. Whoops, nearly did. Just be careful of that. You could put your ribbon in at this point, to be fair, if you wanted to glue it in place first. Just make sure that that's stuck down. Now, I found that because this is a nice tight fit, I didn't actually need to glue this edge because it's actually quite difficult to actually get your fingers in there anyway. So if you just pop it in, and you'll find that it will stay there really lovely for you. So if I just pop in my hand cream, so I'll tie that into a knot, and I thought it was quite nice to actually put a little message inside as well as out. So I used the same dies. So these are from the Beautiful Shapes dies, and it's this little one here that's got some embossing on it. And the actual greetings that I've used are from Celebrating You. This is a really great stamp set because it's got so many different occasions in it, which is really nice. So it covers everything from birthday to birth, celebration, Easter. We've got an anniversary, which is one that is often missing, so that's a really cool one. I like Just For You, and I like Lots of Love. I think they're sort of quite generic, so they're kind of nice greetings. So highly recommend that one. And I've already punched a hole in this, but I cannot see the end of my ribbon. Let's just cut a finer point on that. Pop it through. There we go. I just thought it was fun to have an extra. In fact, I want that on the other edge, don't I? Another greeting inside. So my outside says Just For You, which I thought was nice, and then then a little thank you. It's an ideal little gift for a thank you, I think. So because this ribbon is so fine, I'm actually cutting it, actually tie it in a second knot, and it'll just make your tag sit nicer rather than trying to go straight in with a bow. But of course you could use some twine, you could use other ribbon, use what you have. You don't necessarily need everything that I'm using here. There we go. So I'm just going to trim the ends of my ribbon there. So that's nicely sat in there now. So that is my box finished. And as I say, these edges here just tuck inside, and it just gives that really nice finish rather than sort of a very raw edge on it. So now we need to make the belly band. So again, you can make your belly band exact width that you want it to be. I didn't want mine too wide because I didn't want to cover too much of the actual DSP. So you can see here, let's say you could make it wider if you wanted to, but I'm going to make it the similar sort of size to what this one is, just so you can get the feel for it. And this is where we need this long strip that we cut earlier. So if I bring my trimmer back in, so this one, I recommend that you cut it the full length, or leave it the full length of your page, which I believe is 11 inches in Imperial. Ours is 29.75 centimetres. So I would leave it that length. We don't need it that length, but as it's already in one piece, it's best to leave it, and then we can trim it once we've got it in place, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So you want it your full length, and we're going to cut this one at 1.5 inches wide. Okay, now if you're working in metric, you're going to cut yours at 4 centimetres, not 3.5. So you are going to be 4 centimetres, but as I say, you can cut it whatever size you want to, but 4 centimetres is what I used on the original one here. Now, you've noticed that I've put my trimmer away. I do just need to bring it back very, very briefly. So what I recommend you do is I'm going to score on the end at 1/2 inch. Oops, that was cut. Did you hear that? I'm going to score at 1/2 inch on the end. And again, in Imperial, just about 1 centimetre is absolutely fine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm not actually going to score this as I go. Now the reason that I don't score it is because once your score lines are there, they are there. You've got no wiggle room if one of your sides is slightly wider, because often, depending on how the ends have been stuck in, you might find that one section is just fractionally larger, and it will throw everything out. So what I do is I hook my little piece on the end, and then I bend. Okay, so I'm literally bending as I go, and I'm not creasing it in any great to any great extent. I'm literally just creasing it just to give it enough. Now this last one where it joins here, I'm not going to. So as I pull it away, can you see I've just got these light creases? So what I want to do then is to bend it on those creases. Just make sure that it's lined up here, and score, or burnish I should say. So just again, just fold it over to where that is. Just make sure that it's square at this point, and then fold over. Now you'll probably find that all of your sizes are very slightly different. That's just the way it is. We're going to cut all the paper the same because it's not going to be that noticeable, but it is kind of where the box is made. You won't find that they're all completely identical, but it's just a nice way of making a belly band that isn't too tight, because if you score and then glue, quite often you then find that actually it's too tight and you can't get it on and off your box. So again, I'm just going to wrap this around now that I've made those more permanent scores. and I'm going to glue onto this narrow section at the end. And again, I don't want to pull this too tight. I just want it to just sit nicely, and then you'll find that this will now slide really nicely, smoothly. So if you find it's a little bit tight, you've still got time to sort of loosen it a little if you want to. Okay, so now that's stuck, and this is where that little section is. I can just use a pair of scissors to cut off that excess. So that is why I left it at its full length, because then we have got room to move and have a little play. Right, okay, so to decorate these, so these are little pieces that I've cut here, and the DSP for this in Imperial is 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/8 of an inch. So the 1 1/4 is the width, and the 1 1/8 is your depth. I'm just going to stick all of these in place. So if you're working in metric for these pieces, yours are going to measure 3.5 centimeters across by 2.9 centimeters depth. I'm going to find my join, and I'm going to try and make that my bottom, and also I just want to make sure my flowers are up the right way. So if I had it that way, all my flowers would be up the wrong way, so just make sure they are correct, and my box is correct. There we go. And then that is going to pop on. Once it's been on once or twice, you'll find that it will go on a lot easier. Okay, so that is our box now complete, and the belly band. I just got a little bit of glue here. I'm going to remove. There we go. So now we're on to decoration. So I know this is my front, so that's my top. So what I did on the original, I'm going to stick very much with the original one that we did. I've made some little paper roses. I'm going to make one more just to show you how simple they are. And also I need to cut a couple of little leaves. Okay, so I've cut some little green leaves from the Flowers of Home dies. So this is all part of the same suite. I think these might be slightly different to the ones I used before, because there's 3 or 4 different ones in there. But they're absolutely fine, and I've cut them in garden green. So this is going to obviously go on here. I'll trim this in a second. They're going to be popped in as well, but I want to just quickly recap on the flowers in case you're not familiar with them. So I have cut some squares of paper, or you can use a circle punch, circle die, if you prefer. I tend to just use squares because they're sort of offcuts of paper really, but this is about 4.5 centimeters square, which is about 1.75 inches, something like that. Doesn't have to be precise. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to round off these corners. So this is where I say you could use a circle if you wanted to. Don't be precise about it, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm just going to cut into this and cut into a spiral. Sometimes you get this strange little square edge, it's just where you've sort of rounded the corners, so I often trim that away. Don't need to be precise about this, just keep going round in a spiral. Try and keep them reasonably similar in depth, but it doesn't really matter until you have this little piece in the centre. Okay, now I often just use my bone folder just to start me off really. So I'm just going to curl the first section. You can curl the whole lot if you want to, but it's not really necessary. So again, often on this section I start off with a pair of tweezers and just curl over the end of my actual piece of paper, and you can see it's starting to go into a roll. And then little by little I'm just going to roll the paper around until I have rolled it into a complete circle. So I've used 3 different pieces of paper or card. I've used a piece of Papercraft, again all 4.5 centimeters or 1 1.25 inches, I said. Is it 1.25? 1 3/4, beg your pardon. So Papercraft, and then I've used 1 each of the other pieces of paper, but you can use whatever you wish. So you can see I'm just rolling it around. When it gets to this end bit, you just need to kind of, oops, not drop it, tuck it sort of round, because this section is where we're going to glue it, okay? So just persevere with it for a moment. Now, if you've got a hot glue gun, you can use a hot glue gun. I find that Tombow works quite well for this. It does glue quite quickly. Now, I've been quite generous on there, and what I'm going to do is just continue to twist this until I'm sort of kind of happy with the shape, and then I'm going to pinch it closed. So you can do it as tight as you want or as loose as you want, and that's where you'll get your different sizes. Obviously you'd get different sizes if you cut your cardstock bigger as well, but you can get a variation of sizes just by using that one size. Okay, so if you want to, you can sort of fan out some of your layers a little bit. You can colour your edges, do whatever you wish. I'm leaving pretty much as they are. Right, okay, so now I want to arrange my flowers. So I think I might have this one at the front maybe. Actually, I quite like them like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick one down first. Again, oops, be reasonably generous with your glue. Not quite that generous, but reasonably generous. And I'm going to just try and glue it at a very slight angle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same with the others, but I'm going to sort of prop them all up. Now you might find you just need to pop a little bit of glue at the front of one. Again, just a little bit of glue at the front. And I'm kind of going to sort of squash them together, but so that they're sort of like sticking up a little bit in the middle. Okay, can you see that? So it just gives you that height. And then I'm going to take my 2 pieces of greenery. Just going to trim them off. And I'm just going to glue these in appropriate places. I also want to work out where I'm going to put my little greet in, so I just cut a simple end on it. And I think I might pop this one here. So again, just a little bit of glue at the end because you don't want it to come across on here. It'll just be sufficient to hold it. You can always pop it up like that. And then add some more green. Oops, over here. And your roses won't be stuck permanently yet, so you can sort of manipulate it around a little bit. I'm just going to trim Okay, so if I just clear my decks a little bit. So you can see this is the second one. I'm just going to trim that a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so that's our little box complete. If I bring in the original one, you can see that was different greenery I used there. But you can see they make really cute little projects and really nice sort of little gifts. So if you want something, just a little small thank you, they're actually perfect for that. So I hope you like that today, and I hope you'll give it a go. I'd like to see this in some different papers as well. As much as I love these papers and the colours are absolutely beautiful, I think it would look nice in some nice vibrant colours as well, especially now our Flowering Fields suite that we have at the moment. So hope you enjoy, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.